I would just like to start with a quote. Each time
Yes.
a woman stands up for herself without knowing it possibly, without claiming it, she stands up for all women. This quote is by Maya Angelou. Extending our warmest greetings to the people tuning in. We are so excited to introduce you all to our
Miss
guest
Cynthia
for today.
Stephen.
Good evening, ma'am. We are overjoyed to have you on our podcast. We already know a lot about you, but we would really like you to share a brief introduction about yourself with our listeners.
Okay. Let me start at the beginning in the sense that work with society started after my degree. I have a degree in science. I did to go. Circumstances did not permit. And so then I started working. I mean, I trained in journalism, worked briefly in journalism and publications, but eventually serendipitously, actually, I found myself in the development sector. So for the first few years, I worked in microcredit with among the poor in the city of Bangalore. Having grown up in a semi-urban area, my dad used to work in the in a mining company. We used to live in semi-rural, semi-urban settings among the poor and working classes. So and it was also in a sort of a drought-prone part of of Karnataka. So I saw various kinds of poverty and various kinds of privilege and advantage also. So that is my background. So when I finished my degree and joined journalism, my focus actually, I started off wanting to write in science. But as I said, I came into the NGO sector, worked in microfinance for a long time, microcredit for a long time. And then I shifted to the women's sector. And in a roundabout manner, we discovered that I had a very good insight into society's impact on women's lives because of the way in which I was part of a team that did a field research, and then my report seemed to have a lot of inputs, very lively and very insightful. They found my report. They said you are very strong on the women's section. That was also in the early 80s maybe, and the gender, the idea of gender was just about beginning to come into prominence in the policy sphere. And so then that's where I began to specialize in. I used to get invited to speak and write and train in this field for women. And then eventually I did a master's in women's studies. I became a gender and development trainer. So that's how my work with the NGO sector started, and the women's sector focus on that. Eventually, when I started working in the women, and because of my already focus being on the poor and the disadvantaged, I discovered that there are sections of women which are systemically disadvantaged. I knew they existed, but I hadn't, because I hadn't studied sociology, I had studied science. I wasn't aware of the social aspects and the systemic aspects of that. And that was, of course, the Dalit issues, the Dalit community and the women, the lives of the women. I knew about the Devdasi system, but not that. I did not know that it mainly was a focus of one particular community. I thought that it's just a social practice. I did not have a clue that only a certain set of women and girls were subject to that. And I did not know about the Dalit angle to that. In fact, even my own Dalit consciousness, I was unaware of. And I came to an awakening of my Dalit consciousness already when I was in a senior position in the field and had acquired a very good track record, name. I had already taken my master's and a very good reputation, published a lot. It's only at that stage that I experienced exclusion from selection in some good posts. I thought it'll be a walk-in, but in a series of 4 different positions, I failed in the interviews. In the last minute, after coming right up to the top, then I started wondering what is the reason. And eventually, I discovered that the reason is because people saw me as Dalit. I was very curious. How come people saw me as Dalit? I don't think I had any such experience and so on. Anyway, that whole story will be soon out in published form, I guess. So that is my orientation to the underdog in society, the women. And then in 1995, I was part of the team that went to the Beijing conference. And I must say that that exposure in Beijing, when I came back, I wasn't able to speak for a long time about what I saw there. And what I saw was that what stunned me and shocked me was that I had seen a lot of violence and discrimination against women, but the global scale of that violence and exclusion that women experienced, it came to me only after I went to Beijing. So that was a very important part of my experiences. Yeah, that's what makes me a lot. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the introduction. And even after so many challenges you've faced, and still your work is so inspiring. We adore you for that. We respect you so much for that. So
Thank you.
I will just ask Ronet to go on with the questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the introduction. Like Priyanka said, your journey has truly been an inspiration for many of us. Could you please tell the listeners what your journey has been like and what are some key learnings that you've made along the way?
As I've already spoken a bit about my journey in the introduction. So about key learnings, I would say that the one important thing is that one never understands social systems unless one critically is able to analyze it. And it was only after I got into the work and began to understand the system that I began to see how important and how intricate and structured exploitation was. So if you're looking at gender, how systematically the women, the girls are socialized into accepting and cooperating with their own exploitation. And similarly, the Dalits and Adivasis and other social groups, how they are also systematically groomed into their life experiences, how the working class are taught to be alienated from the fruits of their labor, whether it's women or Dalits or working class, how the system exploits, takes away from people, and gives so little. So that was one of the key learnings. And so for me, this injustice and wanting to change things, make life better for people, whether it's children, the old, innocent people, disabled people, elderly people. So for me, I feel that push to be a voice to the disadvantaged. So that is my calling, I feel, and that is what I have focused on, and I write about, speak about, and I'm so passionate about.
Yeah,
Right,
Priyanka, you were
totally,
saying.
totally. So, ma'am, working in this field is, it's a great initiative. It's commendable how you think in what are your aspects of working. I just have a question that what made you take up work with women, basically?
So this push for justice. See, women are the largest lot of excluded and exploited sections in society, the largest. So half of society, look at, for instance, our assemblies and the parliament. This is supposed to be a society which we have a constitution which says no discrimination, and on any count, whether race, gender, class, whatever. But look at the number of women in parliament. How much the system excludes women. So that's just an example. What about, it's only now that the gender gap in pay, gender gap in education, gender gap in the professional services, then violence that is perpetrated on the women. All this, it is the largest set of exploitation that human society experiences. And so therefore, I felt that my work should impact the largest number, the greatest good for the greatest number. So that is the reason why I have committed to working for women. And in that, not all women is not a homogeneous category. There are many categories, and of that, there are many who are very, very much disadvantaged compared to the others. And so the marginalized section, those are the ones I really care about and want to actively be involved with. Yeah, and I work with them. So Dalit women, the disabled, Adivasi women, such are the ones I focus on. The ones who are poor, rural women. So I write, critically analyze policy from that perspective. And
Right,
that's
ma'am.
how I've
Like
been
you
working.
said, so as we all know, women are constitute the majority of victims of gender-based violence. So my
Indeed.
question to you, or rather an explanation that I would want
make our
from you, is listeners a little more aware about the different forms of gender-based violence, such as physical, emotional, or even like economic abuse at times.
Absolutely. I think, see, the biggest the biggest sense of freedom is autonomy, to be able to make your own choices. Autonomy is a very, very important part of being a human being. When you're growing up as a child, you see, when you're a 2-year-old, you want to eat what you want and not what your mother is feeding you, right? So there you exercise your autonomy. You're becoming a person. When you become a teenager, you want to be different from what your parents are saying. You want to conform to what your friends are like. So there is this inner push to make a choice. Whereas in our culture, this autonomy is systematically taken away from the weaker sections, the women, the children, the working class, the elderly. So slowly and slowly, what happens is that their capacity to make decisions for themselves, to make a choice for what they'll eat, in terms of girls, what they will study, when they will go to school, when they will get married, who they will marry, whether or not they will go to work, whether or not they're going to go to a movie or not, whether or not they're going to go to take up a job, what kind of a job, so many questions which they have to make a choice. Those choices are not given to them. They are made for them. Parents and other stakeholders, if you like, are the ones who are making these choices. And then after they get married, what kind of work they do, what kind of, how many children they have, whether what they eat, how much they eat, everything is, difficult for them to make a choice. So this is the lack of autonomy is the big thing. And so that is a very important, and our socialization is a way to make us willingly give up our autonomy for girls and women. You think carefully. So, they say, my husband's family will not let me work. Yesterday, I was in a meeting. There's a girl who's studying PhD, and she says, I'm allowed to study PhD. I asked, why did you say that? She says, no, there's so much of pressure to marry. They were just allowed me to finish my PhD. And after I get my PhD, then there is so much of pressure to marry. So like this, at no time that do women get an opportunity to make choices and exercise autonomy. That is one thing. Also, the freedom of choice about leisure, about the labor. So girls are assumed, all the gender-based labor that takes place, all the caste-based labor that takes place, on pressure of violence and on pressure of social boycott, women are forced to take up to do a job there. One of the biggest reasons for women to get beaten up in working class households or any household is they didn't put too much in. They either put too much salt or too little salt in the food. Food is not ready. Food has gone cold. These kind of things. And I remember, I'll never forget it. It was we had just come back from Beijing, and a TV reporter was talking to an old man. I saw this on Doordarshan. That old man's wife in a village, she had been made the sarpanch. That was because of the just introduced Panchayat Raj Act, which gave reservation for women. So then the reporter, very excited young woman, she reportedly, इस गांव का सरपंच बन गई है, आपको क्या कहना है इस बारे में? He glared into the camera and glares at this woman and he says, घर में रोटी कौन बनाएगा? You see? So this is the thing. So the women primarily is meant to stay in their private sphere. She's not supposed to have any autonomy, exercise any power, exercise any responsibility, particularly of a formal political nature. She only has to be a creature of, the domestic sphere. So this kind of expectation is there. And sometimes, and then motherhood, then what kind of a mother, that guilt tripping of, if the mother is not going to work and child is kept back, so much what you're eating, how you look, putting on weight. Oh, they are kind of, what to say, policing that happens of women's bodies, what they're eating, what their movements. It's really, really, so it's no wonder that there's a lot of women who are moving away from that and completely making a break from the restrictions that society has imposed upon the women. I'm glad to say, though, that the younger generation, your generation, maybe the teens, 20s and 30s, are probably moving away from that lack of autonomy to a more greater thing. But in some parts of our country, for instance, in UP, Rajasthan, Haryana, there is restriction on girls wearing jeans, girls using their mobile phone, girls going by bus to the neighboring town for college. She can do correspondence, no need to go to college to study. That kind of thing is still there in certain categories. So this is the big thing. So the lack of autonomy, and then the lack of freedom of time. You don't have that. You don't get to choose to read what you want, to relax when you want. You have to finish all your work, all your responsibilities. Only then, if there is time, you can read or relax or do what you want. Enjoy. So you're chained to your duties. These are some of the lack of autonomy that is imposed upon disadvantaged sections. It could be the workers, it could be the women, young people, that sort of things. Yeah.
Ma'am, the story you shared, I mean, a lot of times it happens, unintentionally. We also just see our mothers as, that they are working for us, right? And absolutely at all levels that is wrong, but unintentionally we do intend to, but seeing you working so much for the marginalized sections and women, it's really inspiring. So I will just go with my next question. I'm so intrigued to know more now, to know more about your stories, what you have faced, while walking on the ground. So my next question would be, what were some of the other factors you saw affecting the lives of these women?
Yeah, the economic factors are one very important. All I've spoken of right now is social pressure, but the economic factors are also very, very large. And the fact that women, though they are very capable, are forced into situation where they're non-economic actors. So they're contributing to the economy in a very big way, but not earning money. So they're forced into providing unpaid domestic work. They are working in the domestic sphere. Their care economy, they're part of the care economy in the family or in the society or in the community, but it's not paid, or even to some, it may be valued or respected, but not to a great extent. At any rate, when something happens to them, is there the kind of care they are giving to people? Are they getting the same care when they need it? This is very important. You have to ask. So, as you know, in India, there has been always women's work participation is much lower than the men. And in recent years, in the past 5-6 years, it has fallen steeply and has gone way beyond even neighboring countries like Bangladesh. And the women work participation rate, which is an important part of empowerment of women, has gone down very starkly. And so this is very important. The fact that women's empowerment, economic empowerment, will really strengthen them and make their lives and the lives of their families better. But if they're only providing care work or not able to go to work and not able to contribute financially to themselves and to their family, so they become a kind of dependent and devalue their own self, and the community also devalues them. This is a very important factor. And I think one really needs to work on empowering women and also valuing women's work. So I'm very happy that in recent years, we've been having schemes where women who are heads of households are getting kind of a gift from the government, monthly payment. Shouldn't call it gift. It's a monthly payment they're getting. 2,000 in Karnataka, they've announced 2,000. Other states also have given money. Then another important thing that has happened is many southern states have given free bus travel to women. This is a very huge thing. Mobility for women is a very crucial aspect of empowerment. And I find that now in Karnataka, we have seen that now that bus travel is free, women are very freely able to travel. Larger number of women are seen in the buses, and they are able to interact more. Their social spaces have widened, and that can only be a good thing. So these are some of the positive sides of empowerment of women. So it's not all bad, but definitely the economic aspect is very crucial. So the valuing of women's work, the domestic work, is very crucial and important.
Right. So, extending the discussion on gender-based violence, ma'am, one of the forms of gender-based violence is physical. And as we know, some of the commonly known root causes contributing towards domestic violence include cultural norms, patriarchy, and the overall attitude of society. Question to you is there any change in these common perceptions, or is it still the same?
It's have you heard the saying, the more things change, the more they remain the same? It's like that. So I can definitely say that there has been a change, that things have it's not so all pervasive as it used to be. For instance, the kind of dowry violence we see now is much less compared to, say, in the 80s when we were growing up, 80s, 70s. It was very severe. Girls used to get killed routinely. Every day you used to read papers of girls. Bride burning was a common phrase that happened. Always you will find that the stove burst, the kerosene stove burst. How come only it happens to women? There are men also using stoves in making chai, in the chai ka dukan and all that. And those stoves never burst. Only the women, the stoves working in the in the house, which is being used by women, will burst. So like that, there used to be very bad violence. Of late, it's not so bad, I would say, at one level, not so all pervasive. Women are also, the stigma that used to be there, there used to be a lot of pressure on girls not to break up the family and come away to return to their parents' home in case of marital violence. that stigma is no longer there on the one hand. On the other hand, even if there are more options for girls. They can take up work, they can join a PG or a hostel, and they can take up higher studies. So the options have opened up, which were not there earlier. So in that sense, the gender-based violence has increased, but is not so all-pervasive. In one sense, it has decreased, but the kinds of violence that has increased very, very horribly. And I would say that all that is technology-driven also, because yesterday I saw in the newspaper in Bangalore, there was a fellow who morphed pictures of his girlfriend, intimate pictures of his girlfriend, and put it on a Telegram group, and enjoying comments from his friends or whoever were on that group. Now, that kind of technology-enabled group. Then also, there were 3 other reports of violence against women, all of them involving internet, mobile, cybercrime, that kind of thing. So I think that the nature and the degree of violence has changed. And I would say that younger and younger boys are becoming very violent towards younger and younger girls. So, like, we found minors being involved in cases of gang rape. All this is because of exposure to explicit sexual content on internet. No proper monitoring of access, by the children, and also partly children. Earlier, there used to be a strong restriction on children handling hardware of telephones, for mobile phones. But because it's now used commonly in education, parents who used to object are forced to give phones to the children because of WhatsApp groups, some tuition, some messages, and submitting assignments online and all that. And nobody is monitoring this kind of thing. So I think access of sexual content should be restricted, particularly age restricted for children. And somehow that the technology companies need to do that. Institutions need to do that. Governments need to do that. Courts need to devise new ways to address these issues. Policy makers need to take this and address it with legal options. And society also, social workers, all of us need to also work together to make a difference. How the technology has become very misogynist and has contributed to violence against women, gender violence, not just women, but gender violence basically.
Alright. Relating to the last question, please
ma'am,
elaborate a bit on how gender-based violence has an impact on families, interpersonal and intrapersonal relationships.
It has a very profound influence, not only on the woman herself, but also on the those who are perpetrators, and also the bystanders. So if it's the parents, there are siblings, and the siblings will be affected. If there are if it's a husband and wife, then there are children, and they will be affected. And so there is also the psychological impact of violence against on children. So yeah, intergenerational problems can occur, and a recurring cycle of violence happens. It's been proved that boys who witness violence when they are growing up also become violent with their own wives and children when they become fathers. So there is a self-perpetuating practice where domestic violence is concerned. It has a very profound impact. It also has a psychological impact on the victim, also on the perpetrator. And many times, women struggle to get away from the perpetrators, and they become difficult to extricate. It becomes difficult for the victims to come out from the control. So many of the men who are very violent also tend to have personality flaws. So that is a very major factor. And so having a willing victim perpetrates, enhances the personality flaws of the perpetrator. So it has many, many implications for the career, for the professional advancement of the girls, for the children's studies, future, so many things.
Right, ma'am. So as we know, domestic violence cases are very sensitive and people often don't want to talk about it due to social
Could you please
stigma.
help
Us identify some of the signs that someone is suffering so that we as supporters or anyone in that fact could identify those signs and offer help?
It's actually the system is such that there is a reluctance on the part of the victim from revealing that they are victims. There is a compulsion almost that women should be silent. They should get beaten, but even if they're beaten, say, don't scream, the neighbors will hear. So she cannot even cry. If she cries loudly, then the neighbors will hear. So there is a lot of pressure on the women not to reveal that they are under violence, and under some kind of threat. So it's not easy. Some women do open up and talk about their problem, but many don't. So it's up to us to gain, as you said, the sensitivity. People are also very sophisticated in the way they avoid, giving themselves away in these matters. Like I know one young lady who had issues. Her mother had some personality problems. She would not stay in the house. She would be out of the house a lot. So they had to move away and stay with the father. And so she used to say, I don't like to bring my friends home because I don't want them to know my problems. Why should my problems be known to them? So she will keep her friends only up to this college. No, she will go to a friend's house, but she will not invite her friends to the house, so that the children don't realize, her friends don't realize her mother is not in the house. So like that, people try to cope in different ways. So it's up to us really to learn. And I think it's not about learning the science. It's about yourself being a kind of person which provides a safe space for people to open up. It's not about watching the other person. That also is important. But it's also about you being a person who exudes warmth and feeling of openness, and giving people the comfort level so that they feel comfortable to open up. So that is also important.
Ma'am, so follow sort of a follow-up question, elaborate it a little more briefly, the previous topic only.
See, it's also about not only about us as individuals, it's also about an institution. You could be in a college, you could be in a school, you could be part of an office, you could be in a youth group, and you could be a person who talks about this, who raises the issue and says, that the whole group becomes sensitized, that the whole group becomes a part of the solution and learns how to respond. You can invite people to come and speak. So you equip each other, enable each other, empower each other with information, and also help institutions to offer institutional solutions. For instance, in recent years, the government has passed an order about working women and prevention of sexual harassment in the workplace. And so there is a complaints committee which receives complaints. There is a procedure which is prescribed, which enables women to bring a complaint safely and be protected from any negative impacts. So that is a systemic response. Similarly, we can also enable every institution, ask whether there is a POSH committee, because it's now mandated. Everyone has to have it. So do we have does our school or college? This way we can also become contributors to a systemic solution in the society. So not only do we become aware, we equip others and we equip organizations, or help the process of equipping an organization to talk about it and deal with it.
Yeah. So thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing the resources. So, relating to the previous question, prevention and support are, crucial in cases of domestic violence, especially professional or reliable sources of support. Are there any other such reliable resources, initiatives, or, organizations and support systems for help that you can suggest to our listeners?
Yeah. See, almost all cities have. See, the government is now aware. So there are NGOs. There is women's help desk in most police stations, and there are for in case the person is working in a place where there's not enough women's, because the POSH Act will kick in only if there are 20 women or more in an organization. Let's say there are 8 or 10 women working. So then the committee may not be set up. But the women and child department in the social welfare, in the state government, they have a place for receiving such complaints. And then there is also Behen box, you might have heard about it. So then you can what is it, a she box or Behen box, something like that. So there is an email ID in which you can file a complaint online. Where the central government will I think it's the women and child women empowerment department which takes it up. So like that there are, and then every state has women's commission. So these are all some of the institutions that work with women. And I would say that the best thing would be to ourselves become people who are sensitive and open to helping women, and learn how to do that. Work closely with women's NGOs, and work on supporting initiatives, social initiatives to empower women. Yeah. So these are some of the ways in which it can be done.
So, ma'am, as you mentioned in the start of our conversation that the conference in Beijing 1995 was an eye-opener for you. So I would like to talk about one thing that Dr. Ruth Manurama had said, that she had conceptualized this term called as triple alienated or thrice discriminated. That is that Dalit women are thrice discriminated against, treated as untouchables, outcast due to their caste, gender discrimination as women, and also economic impoverishment. Would you like to speak a little about this conceptualized term a little?
So to put it even more succinctly or pithily, you can say, so caste, class, and gender, these are the three factors which play the most in Dalit women's lives. And so that is what actually it is. But you see, it's not only about caste, class, and gender. It happens in almost all sections, but more to women. But there are two things in Dalit women's lives which are not experienced by other women. One is the Devdasi system, the sexual, socially sanctioned, religiously sanctioned sexual slavery of Dalit women and girls. That is one. And the other one is the forced practice of manual scavenging. The employment in manual scavenging because of lack of other options or opportunities. I know of quite well qualified girls who are doing working in as corporation workers, doing cleaning, because they will not get jobs even though they may be qualified. So the system is such. So there is the way, and plus there is a huge amount of taking their sexual availability for granted. There's a lot of sexual violence against them. A lot of the sexual violence, the rapes and all that happen. A large chunk of it, the majority of it, I would say, happened to Dalit women and girls. Very young children also among Dalits do get into that kind of a situation.
So the Nari Shakti Vandan Abhinam is taking a significant step towards achieving gender equality in the So would you like to comment upon the steps they are taking?
I don't agree that they are taking significant steps at all. The reason is there was nothing preventing the government from actually going for immediately giving the reservation right away. The points they have raised about there needing to be the census taken and later on then the delimitation and after that the women's reservation, there was no need. Will they stop the elections, state elections and assembly elections and parliamentary elections because census is not done or delimitation is not done? No. So that is, they're again actually perpetuating and women in politics. It is nothing but a way for the politicians to buy time to prevent women from coming into power. So I don't think that there is any, I mean, on paper, it looks as if it's something good. In practice, it is actually postponing it by at least a decade. So no, we are all very unhappy with the so-called adhiniyam. I'm sorry to say.
We appreciate that you actually answered that question for us, and we respect that you don't agree with them. It's okay.
Again, it was wonderful talking to you, ma'am.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed interacting with you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for devoting your time to our podcast and for shedding light on such crucial issues. We hope our listeners were as enlightened and empowered as we are through the conversation we had today with you. And Team Girl Up Shisha sincerely thanks you for taking the time to speak with us and wishes you the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you. I wish you all also a very gender just, peaceful and secure future. All of you young people.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.